And next time, you will be allowed to ask a few questions.
Oh, okay. Well, it only went an hour.
No, I'm good. Oh, yes.
Is everybody all right over here?
Spit imitation.
I'd like to welcome you all to this wonderful banquet, and we have some proceedings to go through tonight, so that we should get started. And first, one of the things I want to do is to acknowledge all those people who really have spent a lot of time on this meeting. Those in the background that you haven't seen. We were meeting at 7 o'clock in the morning every day in order to prepare events, and so there's a lot of work that goes into the preparation of these meetings. And certainly one person who isn't here to see the rewards of all her work is Ann Gaffney. And I want to give a special note to Ann, who still is not able to join us, but it was really because of her leadership and her planning for 4 years that we were able to get to this point today. So Ann and her team deserve a lot of thanks and our acknowledgments. I'd like to, those who were involved in any way in the operation of this meeting, including the organizing committee, just to stand up and let's give them our thanks. Names here, and I think most of you know them, and it really wouldn't do justice to go through each one at this time. There are also others who have been involved in other ways, including the scientific committee, whose names are shown on this slide, and I would hope that they stood as well when I had asked them to do so. An event like this tonight does not happen without the support of our sponsors. We have, from their logos that you've seen, had an incredible amount of support from key sponsors, patrons, donors that are listed on this slide. And again, I just want to acknowledge and thank them for their support, their continued support. Many of these people have been our sponsors for decades. Without them, you couldn't have a four-course banquet like you've had tonight. So again, thank you to the sponsors. Some of the sponsors did a lot more. Engelhardt contributed a lot of money to that opening reception. You remember that at the Constitution Center. Companies like Sud Chemie contribute to the awards, the Boudry Award, the Grace Davison's Chemical Division, the Emmett Award, the North American Catalysis Society, whom I represent today, and the Tagusa for sponsoring the Tuesday poster reception, and Springer for the poster session awards. So again, thank you. So one of the things I want to do now is we're going to have a few minutes of a summary of the history of catalysis given to us by Heinz Heinemann. Those of you who don't know Heinz, Heinz is a founding member of the Philadelphia Catalysis Club and the New York Catalysis Club. He was president of the ICC in 1956. Born in Germany, he received his PhD in chemistry from the University of Basel in Switzerland. He spent the next 40 years in petroleum and chemical industry in the United States, including the manager of the Catalysis Research Center at Mobile R&D. He received many honors, including the Eugene Goodry Award. He is a member of the National Academy of Engineering. He is a founding member of the board of the Journal of Catalysis Reviews, and he is this meeting's honorary co-chair. So Heinz has a few words that he wants to share with you and some historical perspectives.
The mic's on the watch.
Get over. Do you know what? We have a computer in there. Get over.
Yeah.
Pretty far over there.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank, first of all, the organizing committee to invite me to share with you some thoughts of Philadelphia as the city where catalysis, organization of catalysis came from. Let me take you back about 60 years to the end of World War II, when a lot of chemists and chemical engineers came back to their jobs from doing service in the military and had lost years of learning what went on in their field of activity. Philadelphia was a city which was host to a large number of industrial enterprises, particularly in the petroleum industry, and this was also the time where catalysis became of major importance industrially, because the Woodry cracking process had become commercial just before the Second World War. Now, when we came back to Philadelphia in 45 and 46, the question was, how could the young people catch up with what had happened before? And Bert Farkas was the one who came up with the idea that a few of us ought to get together and decide whether we could have meetings in which we could talk to each other and learn from each other. This was, 7 of us met in the dining room of my family's home in Drexel Hill in 1946, and we decided to have meetings as often as we could, and assuming we could draw a crowd. That was the beginning of the Catalysis Club. Bert wanted it to be a club like a British club, but that was not feasible because we had no money. Now, speaking of money, many of you know the early history of the Catalysis Club. The Catalysis Club agreed after how many? In 1954, after about 5 years of existence, to hold an international meeting like one had never been held before. For that we worked, but again we found we didn't have enough money to hold it. We went to a lot of foundations, we got a lot of moral support, and eventually we succeeded in getting $5,000, a lot of money at that time, from the National Science Foundation. That was a great risk on their part. However, that wasn't enough to do what we wanted to do, namely to be able to bring people from different parts of the world to Philadelphia for the first meeting, international meeting on catalysis. At that point, Alex Oblatt, who was a member of our executive committee, and I went to see Eugene Houdry. Houdry lived in Philadelphia, and he was a great supporter of catalysis efforts. We went to see him with the idea of seeing whether he could contribute to an international congress. We told him what we wanted, and I can still see him asking us, how much money do you need? Well, we felt we had carefully considered that, and we thought with another $5,000 or so, we might be able to do it. Houdry looked at me and he said, I can't raise $5,000 for you. 50,000, yes. And he was as good as his word. He went to Mr. Dunlop, the president of Sun Oil, who wrote a letter to all the presidents of the big chemical and petroleum companies, urging them to each contribute $1,000, which they did, and we ended up with well over 50,000. Now that not only allowed us to hold the Congress, but actually this money went also beyond the Congress to the Second International Congress in Paris, and eventually in 1967 to the foundation of the North American Catalysis Society. So again, Philadelphia is a major place to have catalysis meetings. Now, since I have very little time today, I thought I'd show you a few pictures of the first Congress, and you have here, and I'm afraid my pointer won't do any good since it can only go to one screen. You have here the head table of the Banquet, which was held at the first International Congress, and standing behind the head table are some of the Catalysis Club members who were involved: Charlie Plank on the far left, Knut Krieger, the third from the left, Bert Farkas, the next man in line standing, and Alex Oblatt. Sitting are the honorary chairs of that meeting, who were Eugene Houdry, Sir Hugh Taylor, and Sir Eric Rideal. That reminds me that in his talk yesterday, Bert Farkas quoted Rideal as saying that Philadelphia at one time was the second largest city in the British Empire. Well, Philadelphia is certainly the largest city for the Catalysis Society. have here the group that assembled for the banquet, and I don't think any of you are old enough to find yourself on it. But it's important to have some records, and I'm afraid we don't. Well, let me tell you that these two pictures I just showed you were taken by none other than the FBI. The FBI agent for Philadelphia and surroundings was a neighbor of mine who had interviewed me a number of times about the foreign guests who were coming, particularly the Soviet delegation. So the day after the banquet, he came to see me and handed me these two pictures, which were taken without my knowledge, but I'm glad to have them. Now here you have the organization of the First International Congress, and you can see that there are a lot of names that might be familiar to some of you who worked very hard to hold this meeting, just as John showed you a little while ago, the member who worked very hard for the current meeting. Here are the officers of the First Congress on Catalysis: Selwood on the left, Bert Farkas, Frank Theopeta, myself, Avi Grosse, and Alex Oblad. I don't know how many of you remember any of them. Here we have Paul Emmett, next to him Alex Oblad, and on the far right Mr. Shulkin, who was the head of the Soviet delegation that came here. And I could go on for probably an hour telling you stories about the problems we had with the Soviet delegation. None of them political, but many of them difficult. Here is Hugh Taylor, Sir Hugh, with Mr. Solomon, and here is John Turkevich lecturing. Here is Alex Mills, who passed away last year, unfortunately, and who has been a major factor in the organization of the Catalysis Society. And here is Herman Pines, who passed a few years ago, and who, because he spoke Russian, was an important factor in our handling the Soviet delegation. That's about it. I have used up my time, but I want to again thank you, and I want to wish the Catalysis Society many more successful meetings, some of them hopefully in Philadelphia. Thank you.
Okay. It was interesting seeing some of those photos. I noticed that some of those tables still had 10 seats around them. It seems like something that's carried on for 60 years as well. In any event, I do want to make some acknowledgement with regard to some of the board proceedings that happened on Sunday here. The board meets every year, and we had elections for officers. Two of our officers, Gary McVicker, the current vice president, and Mike DeMori, the current newsletter editor, asked to step aside and have retired from their roles. So I want to thank them especially for their services in the last few years. The elections of the board produced a president, which is me again, so you have me for another 4 years. Enrique Iglesias is the vice president. Umut Ozkan is our secretary. John Byrne is our very valued treasurer. We created a new role for the former newsletter editor and expanded that to include the website. And Edric Morales, who is the secretary of this particular meeting, was elected the new communications director. And for Foreign Secretary, Kurt Connor was re-elected. We had posted those who had been voted the new directors at large, but I do want to point out that because of a ruling that we don't own dual positions. I now step down from my director at large position as president, and Stu Solid replaces me. So Stu will become the new director at large. One of the things that we thought we would try new this year at the suggestion of Enrique Iglesias and a number of others was to spend a few moments just reviewing or remembering those who recently passed away. Recently here probably goes back 2 years to just around the previous meeting. We polled through contacting the local Catalyst Club representatives persons who probably should be remembered in some special way for their extensive contributions. So I want to thank Umut Ozkan, Bert Davis, and Enrique Iglesias for getting a lot of the information that you're about to see. I also apologize in advance if we've missed somebody who should be here, and I apologize for any errors and for the one photo that we could not get. So what I thought I would do here is just scan through the 11 persons that we want to show here, and I won't make any remarks. I'll just pause at each particular slide, and I think some of these names will certainly be remembered by you. Robert Burwell. And I've tried just to highlight many of the accomplishments. We can't possibly cover all of them. Maurice Mitchell. Alex Mills. Paul Grange. We will have some international ones here because some of you will have noticed that the attendance of this meeting is unusual. For a national meeting, we generally have about 30% attendance from largely Europe. So we've included some of the foreign attendees who frequent this meeting. Jim Schwartz. Bob Satanovich, Canada. Robert Ross, also from Canada. Robert Stowe. Keith Hall. Denise Bartolov. George Kokatanga. Well, that's all the feedback we had. I apologize again if we've missed somebody. If so, remind me, and we shall do it in 2 years from now. Okay, so we come to one of the highlights of this meeting. We have 4 awards that we give every 2 years. We try to acknowledge the contributions of those awardees at this particular banquet, although they are acknowledged during the course of the year in which their award is made. So what I will do is read off the plaque of each of the awardees, ask the awardee to come up, and the sponsor of that award, we will have a small photo op, and then there will be no speeches, and they will return to their seats and we'll go to the next one. So we'll go through the 4 awardees right now. First one, and I'll read off the plaque as it's being given to him. It goes to Henrique Topso, who is the 2005 Eugene J. Boudry Award in Applied Catalysis, sponsored by Sud Chemie Incorporated. The inscription reads, "For your significant contributions to the understanding of hydrotreating catalysts and for your use of state-of-the-art tools and concepts to the solution of industrial problems." Henrique?
Great job.
The next award that we would like to present is the 2005 Paul H. Emmett Award in Fundamental Catalysis, sponsored by Davison Catalyst Company of W.R. Grace & Company, going to Matthew Newrock. The inscription reads, "For your pioneering contributions to theoretical methods for the analysis and prediction of catalytic rates and selectivities." Matt?